Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm doing something a little bit different in today's video and showing you how I made our house feel like a home by building some custom cabinets and floating shelves for our living room. Here's my very badly photoshopped vision so you can get an idea of what I was going for. I took measurements and then designed the cabinets in Fusion 360 just to be sure my cabinets made sense and that I wouldn't mess anything up when I went to build them because I've never really done a project like this before. I linked some of the Fusion 360 tutorials I watched in the description box. I made a drawing of the cabinets with the quantity of each piece listed so I knew exactly how many pieces I needed. I then took my parts list and used a website to generate cut sheets so I could be as efficient as possible with my materials since the wood prices are still pretty high. With my cut list made and materials acquired, I started cutting the 3/4 inch plywood for the cabinet carcasses. I made a makeshift router table so I could make 1/4 inch grooves in the cabinet sides and bottoms for the cabinet backing to slide into later. I've linked the video I followed to build the router table in the description box. I made the 1/4 inch grooves 3/4 of an inch away from the back edge to allow room for the stretchers to be attached behind the cabinet backing later on. I drilled pocket holes into the underside of the cabinet bottom so I could then use pocket hole screws to attach the sides of the cabinet. I gave all the cabinet pieces a quick sanding with 220 grit sandpaper before assembling them. To assemble the cabinet carcasses, I added glue to the bottom edge of the cabinet piece and then used 90-degree angle clamps to hold the side piece in place while I added pocket hole screws. Here's how it looked with the sides attached. I was so happy that all my routed grooves lined up perfectly. Next, I added the stretcher pieces to the carcass. I added 2 at the back of the carcass and 2 to the top. Here were my 4 assembled cabinet carcasses all ready to be installed. I made a simple base platform out of 2x4s attached with long wood screws. There was a vent on the floor on one side of our fireplace, so I cut a hole in the front of the 2x4 to allow for a new toe kick grill to be added later. I cut a 3/4 inch piece of plywood to cover the 2x4 base and secured that to the base with my nail gun. Either our floor wasn't very level or the 2x4s weren't very straight, so I added some small shims to make the platform level before placing the cabinets on it. I brought in the cabinet carcasses to make sure they would fit and checked again that they were level. I had pre-marked the studs before moving in the carcasses, and I secured them to the studs with screws and slid the back panels in place. I brought in the piece of plywood I had cut for the countertop to make sure it fit too. I ended up having to take the back panels out to cut the hole for the outlets because I forgot to do that earlier. Next I moved on to face frames, which I used 1x4s for the top and bottom pieces and 1x2 for the sides, and joined them together with wood glue and pocket hole screws. I put the face frames in place to see how they looked and if they covered all the gaps. Some of the gaps on the sides of the cabinets were larger than I anticipated, so I just cut pieces of plywood to go there instead. I didn't film any of the floating shelf process, but this is how the larger and smaller shelf looked while they were drying. To mount the floating shelves, I used a 1/2-inch square dowel that I secured to the studs using lag screws. I've linked some of the videos I followed on how to make and mount the shelves in the description. Once the glue on the shelves were dry, I moved on to painting them. I used a light tan paint that I got from the Mist Tint paint section at Lowe's. After 2 coats of tan paint, I used Rust-Oleum glaze in Java Brown and applied it with a chip brush all over. I evened it out a little bit more with the chip brush and then used a large coarse brush to create more texture and make it look like faux wood. Here's a close-up of how the glaze looked on the countertop. And here's how the countertop and shelves looked as they were drying. The glaze takes a really long time to dry, so I moved on to building the cabinet doors. Again, I didn't film any of it since I wasn't entirely sure what I was doing, but I'll link a few videos that I referred to. And this is how they looked on the hinges before I painted them. I used a roller and bare scuff defense paint in white to paint the face frames and doors and gave everything 3 coats of polyacrylic to seal it. Here's how they look at the moment. I can't believe how well they turned out, and honestly, I can't believe that I didn't completely mess something up since this was my first time doing a large build project like this. I'm still working on styling them, but I love how much bigger it makes the living room feel, and now it really makes our house feel like a home. I also love that I decided to install outlets on the countertops. I'll leave you with a visual of the before and after. I hope this video inspires you to take on your own projects, and I'll see you in the next one.